What's up guys, Clutchfactor37 here doing the second rendition of Iconic Dies, and this time, instead of showing you guys how I did it, I'm just going to talk you through it and then string it up for you guys. So today I whipped up a StringKing Mark II V with a Colorado Mammoth theme. I did a post on Instagram and asked people to vote, and more people wanted Mammoth die, and you know, it's my hometown, home team, so I figured I would do one up just for fun. So it's maroon to a white fade going down here. There's a bunch of little mountain schemes going around. Very easy, just a couple little stickers, and right here it says Colorado Mammoth. On the scoop we got the Colorado Mammoth logo in maroon, white, and black. So we're going to string it up today with a slice of StringKing 4S mesh, some white shooting strings, and some black sidewalls to really tie in the black that they have in their jerseys, which I kind of modeled after their home jerseys, which is a lot of white with a little bit of burgundy and a little bit of black. So let's get started. Alright, so first thing I like to do when I die is stick up and then string it is I like to throw it on a shaft I use for stringing. Obviously I'm sitting at my desk, so it makes it a little easier for me to mess with it and make sure I got some stuff going for me that I really like. And I always do it on the shaft I use to pound my pockets. It has a nice gate butt end here from a couple of years ago. So basically once I string up half of it or the whole head, I can just take it off, flip the shaft, and pound it. So today we're going to do 4S. We're going to do a John Grant Jr. replica pocket, but instead of using 3X and flipping the mesh backwards, we're just going to do a standard mesh fold. That way the rough texture is on the inside, and string it up with 4S instead of 3X. So obviously first thing you do is tie your knot from your sidewall. I love the StringKing sidewalls. They're very nicely woven. They have a nice rough texture. They really hold knots together. So we're going to start on the second hole here and just do a standard 9 diamond. For this one, just to make it a little better than what he uses, we're going to do the classic 9 diamond that a lot of people are doing now, where the knot is on the inside and it really holds those two bridges together, making the mesh nice and even and flat. So if you don't know how to do that, just kind of pause the video or something. So after I do the double wrap here, what I do is I actually take the string to the front of the mesh like this, like most people do, but I flip the head this way so I can see what I'm doing. But it's just a standard head through the mesh. Pull it nice and tight, making sure that the mesh sits as close to the scoop as possible. So you can see we have the first loop, and from here obviously you go back through that second bridge and through this loop in the front you made. And that's a rough idea of how to do it. I think that nowadays a lot of people stick to this top string that I think Manly Mesh and Big Sam started doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do the whole top string since it's pretty basic, and then move to the sidewalls. Alright, so as you can see, we got the top string done on the second hole, double wrapped on both sides. Pretty standard 9 diamond top string, like I said. I believe there's plenty of tutorials out there for this one. But for the John Grant Jr. replica pocket, this is not a complete tutorial. It's just kind of a fast skim through of it. If you want the full tutorial, go check out my YouTube. It's a couple months back. There's a John Grant Jr. replica, but what he does is he starts on this hole, and since these holes are so large in the StringKing Mark II series, I like to wrap them over the top string one more time. That way it just kind of locks the string into place, and you don't have to worry too much about, you know, the string pulling through as time goes on or anything, and just makes it a bit more secure, at least for the knot. So like I said, standard. We're just going to loop around once since the top string already has 2 loops through it. So once we get to here, we're going to start the actual sidewall process. As you can see, I'm going to start doing this side, show you guys, do the other side, and then finish it up. So like I said, wrap it up here and then go down. Let me grab my Junior. This is what I use for reference. I have a couple John Grant Jr. replica pockets. These ones are actually for sale. They are the StringKing Legend Senior, so they actually had to use his exact replica of how he strings his sticks up. Just the link in the bio. You guys can check these out. But for here, for reference, so it's going to be skip the third hole and SI on the fourth with the very first 9 diamond row. So it's going to pull it down a little tight as opposed to what a lot of people think. And then from here, once we do the first SI, which if you don't know how to do an SI, there's plenty of tutorials out there like this. The first 5 interlocks are just skipping 1 hole each. So we're going to go down and skip 1 hole with all of them, doing a nice little interlock. His are fairly, I mean, they loosen up over time, and I don't think he pulls his strings super tight when he does it. I think he pulls it, you know, relatively tight, and then of course the more you play with it, since It's not a knotted SI or an actual knot. I think they just loosen up over time, but in plenty of pictures you'll see his is a little looser, but I like to keep it as tight as possible. That way you get the most consistency out of your pocket. So, like I said, got the first portion done here on this side, and as you can see here, just SI, skipping one hole and going all the way down. Pretty simple stuff. So now I'm going to do the other side and show you guys how to finish it off, and then we'll do shooters and everything after that. So now that I put both sidewalls in this head, the easiest way to read his pattern without trying to actually read it online, a lot of people do like skip, 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 SI. What I like to think of and how I remember it is skip 1, skip 1, skip 1, skip 1, skip 1 for the first 5. Then it's a skip 2, and the rest are skip 3s all the way down until you get to the very bottom. So real quick, I'm just going to fly through this side. Like I said, so skip 2 holes in any of the Mark II series or Legend series. Pull it nice and tight. Skip 3. Same thing, nice and tight. After I do every knot or so, I like to pull the mesh outward like this so that the SI really sits and locks into where the string is. That way you get the most consistent pocket. You don't have to worry about anything bagging out or the pocket being off-centered. So like I said, skip 2, skip 3, skip 3, skip 3, and once you get to the bottom, if you do it properly, you should have 2 holes left down here. So you can see right here, you got 2 holes in a string. Pretty simple. All he does is go around the back portion of the mesh, like we normally do, through that hole so your string ends up on the inside, and up through a string right here. What's nice is since he skips 3 holes on the side, right about in this area, as you can see inside here, is you can pull this string and have it in that second hole down, so it's right in the middle of a skip 3. So like I said, once I string up a side, I like to kind of push it out, make sure that everything sits nice and flush, and now I'm going to do the other side and we'll get to the bottom string. So we just finished up both the sidewalls, tied the knots. Typically, John Grant Jr., this string doesn't come up this high, it's usually down here. But for my purposes and the way I like to play and have it, I like to do it up an extra row. But now as you can see, the pocket's fairly flat, there's no shape to it. So what I do, ow, that kind of hurt actually, these things are hard. Take it and stretch it out. I'm really focusing in the middle portion, the higher portion, because since there's only, skipping 1 diamond here for the first couple of rows, that's really where the shooters lay flat and you get the most feel out of it. He doesn't use a lot of whip or hold in his pocket, but I like to stretch it out there. It just gives a bit more feel for me. So simple, just do this and make sure you get the entire pocket as you're stretching it out. What I like to do is if I like a pocket in the middle of the head, I always stretch it up higher than where I want the pocket. That way the mesh diamonds where I stretch it out get larger, so that way the pocket shifts. It naturally will sit there. John Grant Jr. replica a little difficult because this pocket's relatively flat and there's not a lot of pull down or anything crazy with it, but you can see, nice and stretched out. And after this point, you can kind of see the pocket has a bit more shape to it. Just do a little cheater bottom string with your hand and you can see you're really kind of getting that John Grant Jr. look with it. So at this point, I'm going to cut the strings, burn them, and then we're going to throw in the bottom string and then the shooters, and we'll be good to go. Got the pocket all set up, and for his bottom string, I've seen him do a couple different versions, but basically what he does is instead of going through the 9 diamond like most people would, he goes to the next 10 diamond but skips the most outer one, so he only goes through 8 rows. And from here with the Mark IIV, since they have 7 different bottom holes, the most common one I see him do is up through these 2 next to the middle one like this. That way the pocket can sit nice and flush, but as you play with it, since it's not on the inner ones, it can stretch down a little bit. And from here, you just take the string and feed it right back through the bigger, most inner ones towards the throat. So once you get it all situated, it should look something like that. So from here, you pull it tight, do a classic little square knot depending on how deep you want your pocket. That looks pretty close to what he uses, so we're just going to go ahead and tie it. So just quick over under, and same thing, but make sure you go the opposite way. That way it has a nice square knot, doesn't come undone. And there you go, your classic bottom string for the John Grant Jr. replica pocket. It's looking pretty perfect, like I said, he uses 3X and maybe 4X now, but he flips it backwards, and since it's a harder mesh, the pocket won't shift around as much. But I like to use StringKing 4S. It has a nice soft feel, and even with the 4-string and John Grant Jr. replica pocket, you're really going to get the most feel and the best out of your pocket. So all we got to do now is throw in the shooting strings, and we'll call her done. So for the shooting strings, what's a little interesting is he uses 4 straight like a lot of Canadian players do. But if you buy a classic StringKing stringing kit, it only comes with 3. So there's a couple different options. One, you can use these nylons as a top shooting string. Just keep them really tight so you get the same, almost the same feel. But if you don't have access to a 4 StringKing shooting string, that's probably your best bet to get the actual exact replica pocket. So like I said, there's 3 there. Go in my bag of StringKing goodies and pull out a 4th shooting string, and we're in business. So he does a couple different things. I've seen him go through the actual sidewall and attach the string that way, or he goes through the SI. Most recently with his Mark II, or I'm sorry, his Legend, he goes through the SI area. So super simple. You just kind of go through here. Obviously it's just a classic shooting string, and then from there, what I like to do is I like to weave one side all the way through and pull it so they're almost even. That way you get a nice even cut, and that way you don't have to worry about going back through or adjusting your string. But make sure it's nice and flat, you know, it's relatively even, and just start weaving. I do 2 at a time and pull it. That way you can kind of see if it's folding a wrong way or if there's going to be too much tension there. By tension I mean, you know, if you pull a shooting string too tight, it's not going to sit flat. But to make sure you get the nice feel out of his stick, you want them to be just about as flat as possible. And as you play with it, of course, the StringKing shooters, or any shooters in general, will flatten out. But like I said, once you get one down, you can go through and tighten it. He uses his top shooting string fairly tight, so we keep it pretty close to what I think he would use. So it's pretty tight, but obviously with 4S and the way the StringKing shooters are, they will stretch out over time. So that's why you leave a lot of extra space and you cut off, you know, a decent amount. You can burn it and go back through and readjust it. But basically, after I do the first 2 here, what I like to do is I like to cut them and burn them. That way I don't have all this long shooting string excess stuff hanging over while I'm trying to string the last 2 shooters. And then this way, just makes it a little easier. I'm a little OCD about things. I like things to be neat. So that's about as sloppy as I'll get. So make sure it's nice and flat. Pull it. Weave 2 diamonds at a time. Try and make sure that they stay as flat as possible as you go throughout the head. You can see this one's a little twisted, so all you have to do is just work with it, make sure they sit fairly flat. And yeah, so this is probably the boring part of the video. I think nowadays most people know how to do shooting strings. And after you get the gist of the pocket and stuff, you pretty much string it however you want. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and cut these 2 real quick and burn them, and we'll start the 3rd and 4th shooting string, which are the most important for this pocket. First 2 installed and cut. I do leave a little bit of slack so you can go back through and tighten them up or loosen them depending on how the pocket's playing after you break it in. But for the 3rd and 4th shooting string, I have a little trick that I do, especially when I string pretty much any of my sticks with 4 straight or even 3 straight that are lowered. So obviously, just like we did before, you're going to take the shooting string and weave it through the whole diamond flat, pulling it here and there so you have some tension, a little bit of slack, so you can really cut your strings and make sure you have some, you know, room to play with. Make sure it sits nice and flat. What I do is I actually will string these ones and not tie the knot. I'm going to play on words for you guys. But I don't tie the knot once I finish them, so I do both of them. Another reason why I cut these 2 early is I string them up, which I'll show you here in a second. Make sure there's plenty of slack here once you're done stringing them up, so you can kind of, you know, tighten it, mess around with it, loosen it, do whatever you need. But I keep them relatively loose like this, kind of mess with the pocket so it helps stretch them out naturally, because you have, you know, your hand is almost the same size as the ball. As you're rubbing it through, the string strings will loosen up a bit and you'll kind of feel the tension leave. After that, you throw in the 4th shooting string, doing the same thing, but this one you want to keep really loose. John Grant Jr., when he strings his sticks, and most Canadians, their 4th shooting string is pretty much loose. It's really only there to add a little bit of friction so the ball doesn't lose, but also kind of hold the ball right there where you want it. So like I said, nice and loose. Go back through and weave it loose, making sure it still stays flat though, which is kind of the main key to this whole pocket and the whole, method behind this. But once I get through the 6 diamonds, so about 3 times going up and down, same thing, I do this, make sure this gets loose, go back through. This string isn't quite flat, so I'm going to go ahead and twist it so it gets flat. Look at it, make sure it's looking good, and from there finish it up, going through the remaining 4 diamonds, pulling it, making sure that string's nice and flat so that you don't get any extra hold or whip you don't want. And then once you get through there, just like I showed you previously the last, 40 seconds ago, get it through this SI, pull it not too tight, keep it nice and loose, and just do this for a little bit. If you have access to a pocket pounder or a shaft like I do, just taking it and lightly going over the strings, fairly lightly like this, it'll help stretch it out, especially in the channel area, so you make sure that it doesn't hook on you. And after you get that, go ahead and mess with the tension a little bit. This is one of the things where if you don't string a lot of sticks and you're just starting, the tension is kind of the most important part, especially if you're stringing up a stick with not a lot of pull down, or you're stringing a stick with way too much pull down. Sometimes the shooters do add a lot. So basically, tie up your knots, cut it, and you got yourself a finished John Grant Jr. pretty much replica pocket. Finished product with all the strings cut and the mesh properly stretched out, or I guess you could say that. It's basically a John Grant Jr. replica pocket. It's the exact same pattern he uses. The only difference is he uses that very standard 9-diamond top string. He doesn't use the one where it latches the mesh evenly on the whole bridges here. He also uses 3X mesh flipped backwards, so there's pretty much a semi-hard pocket with no feel and no whip. The reason I use 4S in this pocket is, one, it's my favorite mesh of date. It's incredible. I really like how soft it is, and when you have 4 straight, like a Canadian box style pocket with a soft mesh, it's really going to allow for a lot of hold. The ball's really going to be able to sit wherever it wants. But with the 4 straight and his replica pocket, you really get the most feel out of a stick with no whip. What I mean by that is you kind of have to play with it to understand, but you could aim this stick wherever you want and the ball's going to go there. Having no whip and having a deep pocket with a little bit of extra snag and grab right here really allows for you to hone in where you want the ball when you're shooting or passing. Having 4S in the pocket, instead of using 3X or 4X, allows for a nice soft feel, and it's really going to allow the most hold with the least amount of whip possible. So, like I said, second installment of Iconic Dies. Did the Mammoth logo up top in red, white, and black, or maroon, white, and black, and then just a maroon and white fade with the mountains here, and it says Colorado Mammoth on the side. StringKing Mark II, all StringKing materials, hands down some of the best stuff on the market. So, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know down below what videos you guys want to see, die techniques, whether you want me to do in-depth tutorials of how I dye certain stuff, or if you guys just want to see the process. I'm really excited to have this camera and have this editing stuff and really bring you guys some quality content that I myself would enjoy watching. So I'm going to work with it. After the New England Black Wolf stick video, I realized there were some things I should have done, like talking, maybe some music while I string it up, but for this one I figured I would talk while I string it up and talk to you guys through the process of stringing and my methods of stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoy. As always, check out iconiclacrosse.bigartel.com. Got plenty of cool stuff on there, custom heads, string jobs, a lot of cool apparel for Iconic Lacrosse, and I'm really excited to see where all of this takes me, and I couldn't do it without you guys. You guys drive me and motivate me, and always come back to watch my goofy videos for some reason. So, one last look, John Grant Jr. replica pocket, 4S, StringKing Mark II, Colorado Mammoth theme. Doesn't get much better than that.